We got the packet tracer right behind us. So what are we going to do? I'm going to show you the different parts of the packet tracer. And we're going to make first a very basic topology, or really I'm just going to show you how we can drag things out into a work area so you start getting comfortable going around the packet tracer. So we're going to go into the navigation of the packet tracer. Yes, yes. Okay, so the first thing we got up here, we have right up here, the little gray bar, we have our toolbar. We have file, edit, options, view, tools, extensions, and help. What are you really going to use most of the time? Obviously, it's file, save, or here in options. In options, you go to preferences, options, preferences. You got all these tabs that are right in front of you. First thing, my pet peeve is here under the interface tab, you're going to go ahead and look for the checkbox that says always show port labels. Make sure that always show port labels has a check mark. So if it doesn't have a check mark, you want to put a check mark on there. Okay? So definitely you want to do that. Also, as you can see here under the same tab, if you go down to the next pane, you have the logging. It has a check mark. You want to leave that there because you can export the configurations of a router or a switch into a notepad file. Wherever you want to save it is up to you. But then you'll have a step-by-step of what you've done on that router or that switch. So definitely there's a little handy tool. Just click export. And it tells you where you want to save it. You name it, R1 configurations, and then save it wherever you want. Just know that that's a possibility using the packet tracer. Now the next things you can play around with. I only really look at the interface and I look at the font tab. And why I look at the font tab, because I change the CLI, which is the command line interface. I change that to 18, sometimes higher. I'm getting old, so the eyes are not what they used to be. All right, so I changed that. You can change the colors. If you want different colors in the background or what have you, you can change them however you wanted to. All right, so those are mainly the two tabs that I play with when I go into the preferences. All right, but most importantly is you want to make sure that always show port labels is chosen, so you know where you're connecting things to. Because there is a method to my madness as why I connect always a switch on port F024 to port F00 on the router. I try to keep things simple. I try to be consistent as I do my labs. So, but there's a method to the madness. There's a method to the madness. And as you go through the course, you'll see why I do that. So again, and that's under options and preferences. All right. Let's close this. It's not very aligned. The next thing really that I use up there, it all depends because you can use this in a classroom. Let's see here. Under extensions, you can have multi-users. All right. If we were to use a cloud, and the cloud that I'm speaking of is down here, I'll click on it, and then I'll click on it again, and I'll just put it in the work area. Let me zoom in to make sure you can go ahead and see that, because you can actually configure these clouds to talk. If you have network connectivity, it could be in your home or it could be in a classroom. If you have network connectivity within the computers around you, you can go ahead and set up these clouds where they're listening, and that's where you go to extensions, multi-user, and you look at, listen. All right, and you can set these up where you can talk back and forth between different computers in the classroom, and you can connect them, connect one cloud to another cloud, and they'll talk to each other. You can talk to multiple networks. It makes the classroom more interactive. It's really not that difficult. All right, so again, the only time I go in there, if I were to do some multi-lab like that, where I want all the students, because you can actually counsel in to the student's switch or to the student's router, and you can see the configurations right on the projector or right on your screen. You can see their configurations and you can fix it right from your desk if you wanted to. Okay, you can do it only one at a time, obviously, but it's something nice. It makes the classroom a little bit more interactive by using the peer cloud. Very people know about it or do it, but it is something that is possible. Okay, so that's really all I use here. I really don't use this besides new or maybe save right here in the toolbar just underneath the menu bar, and then my zoom buttons. I want to zoom in so you guys can see it better, or zoom out. I usually zoom in because I can't see. All right, so that's the only things that I mess around here. And then I go to this toolbar here on the far right side. The first one is your selector tool, which will allow you to select, click and hold. This, remember, back from the Windows days, is lasso and loop, right? To select whatever you want to select. The hand, I never use. It's to move it back and forth. The place note. The place note I use all the time because that's where I click, select it and click, and then I put in my IP address, right? Just as an example. All right, and there's my IP address right there. Or if I'm going to name something, I can go ahead and get my place note. Let's say I'm putting R1. Now I got my R1 router, okay? So whether you're putting IP addresses or you're putting host names, whatever user you're going to put, you can go ahead and use that label. Now be very careful with the X, because you can see that R1, I don't know if you can see it or not. You probably can't because it's right behind me. All right, R1, all right, R1, if it's red, and I'll zoom in as much as I can. I think that's always zoomed in. If R1 is actually red, or whichever one of those is red, that means it's selected. If I were to click the X, it would delete whatever is selected. So you gotta be careful. One of the things I tell everybody, you have a huge topology that you just created. I always say click on the work area, anywhere on the white, so it deselects anything, and then select what you want and then delete. You know what? I mean, you can always do a Control Z or an undo and bring it back, but just to make sure, deselect everything just by clicking somewhere in the work area, right? Deselecting everything, and then select what you want, and then you can press the X to delete. So I'll select, let's say, the IP address. Well, the best way, because sometimes we'll try to go inside, is just to do like a lasso and loop. It selects it, you see it's red, and then just click the X, and are you sure you want to delete it? And you say yes, and now it's gone. But you can always, and you see now, it didn't do this before, it didn't keep the X before, but with this version, it keeps the X now until you're done. So you want to make sure to go back to that toolbar on the right, and you want to go ahead and get that selector tool again if you want to do anything. Now I've seen a lot of instructors that they like to use this little drawing palette here, where you can draw circles and ellipses and all sorts of stuff. You can do that just to organize things, especially like if you're doing OSPF or EHRP, you want to show different autonomous systems, different OSPF areas. It's very simple to use. I guess if you're an artist, I'm no artist. Okay, so I picked a fill color. I'm gonna do a circle, and then I'll just, you see, you draw. Well, see, look, I didn't select the fill circle, so you can tell right there. I'm gonna select blue. I think that's blue. All right, and then you make another circle, whatever. So you got to get used to working with it, and then each one can be. Then you get your selector tool again, and then you can move the circle where you want. All right, oops, let me select the wire. Put the circle where you want, and that could be one area, another area. So you can do whatever it is that you want to do to create your topology. Because remember, the biggest thing is to design your network first. Once you design and know the IP scheme that you're going to use, then name your devices, obviously PC1, PC2, PC3, router 1, router 2, switch 1, switch 2, whatever, faculty, however you want to call it. And then you start to the configuration. But definitely you want to learn the design first. Now, I don't use this button right here, which is called the resize and shape button. I don't use that at all. And again, I rarely use these buttons right here. I'm just going to get rid of these things right here, which I think I just can I delete this? Thank God. Yes, let me delete this one here. All right. And then these right here. This is a simple PDU, the closed envelope. And then the open envelope is a complex PDU. What does that mean? A simple PDU is an ICMP. It's a ping. That's all it is. And you show that when you have a simple topology, or you want to show ARP, right? Because in IPv4 we have ARP, and you want to show that the first time you ping in an IP version 4 network, that how that ARP actually works. That it goes to the router and then it comes back, so now you know the MAC address, then the ping goes and so forth. So that's good to know, so you can see the flow of traffic. If you want to show EIGRP, in which direction the packet is flowing, use that simple PDU, a simple ping. And I'll show you how to do that. And then the other one is a complex PDU. You can send out an SMTP or an email PDU or an FTP PDU. So it's a little bit more complex. You have to set up the TFTP server or an FTP server or set up some DNS, so you can see how that works. Now, in order to use that though, you need to make sure that you're in something. If you keep going further down, you're now going to be, and let me get out of your way here, you're going to be in real time, and right behind real time, if you have your packet tracers open, behind real time is something called simulation. I'll click on that. And that's where these two envelopes come alive. That's where you're going to click on the envelope, you'll click on one PC, then click on the other, and then you'll click auto capture and play. And then you'll see the flow of traffic going back and forth. Okay? So this is where they're going to come alive. Always remember that if you're done with this, down here in this pane right here, or in this field right here, you can always select it and then delete it, and then it's gone. And then it's gone, whatever you were doing there before. And then you can always go back to real time, so you can do your actual pings or whatever it is that you're doing. The next thing that you want to look at, and this is over here, is in the lower left-hand corner, I guess you will call. You have your actual internetworking devices and your end devices. All right. So your end devices or your internetworking devices, the first one, if you click on it, it's going to show you a bunch of different routers. You have your 1841, your 1941, your 2620, your 2011 XM, or is that? No, your 2621 XM, 2011, 2901s, 2911s, and what have you. You're normally going to use with me the 1841s, the 2620s, and the 2811s. You're not going to go beyond that on the test. No need to get into any kind of deep configurations that you would need to know the different iOSs to those particular routers, at least not yet anyway for the exam. So we'll be using the three of them, so you can see how they look, because they do look different. The slots look different. They're in different locations. Still connect to them the same way. So, but again, so in order to get them out there, there's many ways. You can click and hold and just drag it up, and there's your router. Or you can select one. Let's pick the 2621 XM. You see it turns into like a do not smoke sign or something like that. And then you click on the actual workspace, and then it pops up. And again, just drag it out again. So there's many ways that you can actually take these devices out there. So since we have three routers out here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put them close. I'm going to delete this one that says router 1. So I'm going to click the X. Oops, I must have, there you go. Click the X. Let me get my selector tool again. I'm going to put this over here. Just put this over here. Okay. And you can see the differences between them. I'll show you right now. All right, just so you can see. There's your 1841 routers. All right, you see you have two slots. You have your console cable. Let me zoom in. Your console cable, your console port. You have two slots, slot 0, slot 1. You have your console ports. Oops. You have your console ports, your two fast Ethernet ports, and your auxiliary port. And your slots are right here. And of course, it shows you the area for your flash card. If we were to look at the 2621, slightly similar. Let me open it up a little bit here. I'll do it this way. All right, let's zoom in on it. Form factor is a little bit different. We still have two slots right here. You see your console auxiliary. you have two fast Ethernet ports, or in this case, well, it has to be fast Ethernet. It's 10-100 Ethernet. All right, so it will be fast Ethernet ports once you plug in the cables. And this is also considered a slot that you can choose from one of these. These are all your slots right here that you would drag over here, not only for your WIC cards, but if you need more fast Ethernet ports or fiber or whatever the case may be. All right, in order to do that though, you got to remember, you got to turn off that router. They're not hot swappable. So you got to turn off your routers. You got to turn off your router there. Drag in the slots. So let's say we're going to pick a WIC 1T. And I'm just going to drop it right in there. And then you can turn the router back on. Okay? Simple as that. Not a big deal. Oops. Let's close that up. So you can see it's not that hard as far as putting in the slots or taking out the routers. And the same thing goes with the switches. So let's go ahead and take a look at the switch back on the lower left-hand corner in the internetworking devices, which are on top. Normally, the only switch I use, because this exam deals with layer 2 switches only. And that's what you're trying to pass, the CCNA test. So you have to stick with layer 2. I know some of you are out there using layer 3 switches. Some are using many other different things, but for the test is layer 2 switching. So the 2960 is more than enough than you need. So I'm just going to drag 3 2960 switches right out there. See, and that's very simple to do. Now, the Cisco exam, the new one, took out wireless. There's now a CCNA wireless exam. So the packet tracer still has the wireless there. You can see you have a Linksys router in there that if you want to configure, you could, okay? But it's not really taught anymore within the CCNA course. It's taught in the CCNA wireless course. In order to get CCNA wireless, you need to have CCNA. So again, that's not taught here, but and also keep this in mind, because some people, they're like, oh, well, it doesn't allow me these commands. The mindset of the packet tracer is for CCNA. It will allow you to do a very, very basic voice, okay? Some CCMP commands. Some, not all. All right, because its main purpose is for you to pass the CCNA. Cisco's philosophy is if you're already going into the CCMP, you should be in the field already working with live equipment. So the CCNA is not, the packet tracer is meant only for the CCNA. You can use it to a certain degree for the others, but definitely not made for CCMP, not made for CCIE. All right, you will need to actually get live equipment or some other type of simulator like Boson or GNS3 or whatever the case may be. And even those simulators will be limited, because once you get to the CCIE level, you're using enterprise level iOSs, which certain GNS3 routers do not support certain commands. So again, once you get to those levels, you should be using live equipment. That way you get it may cost you a little pretty penny, but hey, once you got those certifications, you'll be making the money anyway, so you'll be good to go. All right, so that's how you put in devices in here. All right, very simple. Then you have your end devices at the bottom, lower right hand. And you see you have your PC, just click and drag. You have laptops if you want to get fancy. You have servers. Now, the good thing about servers, and I'm going to click inside it, because you can click inside each device in order to do anything you want it to do. One of the things that I like, you go into the config tab of a server, okay, and you have all these services available to you. You have HTTP settings if you wanted to change something in there, a little HTML, right? Just put your name in there or something just so you can make it pop out. You can set up your own DHCP scheme in there, and you can actually send out your DHCP to everybody out there. I have a lab, I don't know if it's in YouTube or another site, I think it's in my VLAN Accesses lab, where the DHCP is actually going across a broadcast domain, but it's using the IP helper address. So, but you have to set up the DHCP pools. There's your TFTP. It already has some basic iOS in there. When you're doing your backup of your startup config in your iOS, this is where you're backing it up to. You have your DNS. If you're doing DNS name resolution on your router, this is where you would go and set up the host records and IP address. Syslog will be configured right from there. You can configure an MTP server right from here. All right. Believe it or not, you can set up email from here. I mean, we won't get that deep into it. I'm just telling you all the functionality that the packet tracer has. So you can actually set up email. You can send email between PCs inside the packet tracer. It's pretty cool, because if you're going to use those envelopes, the open one, which is a complex PDU, and you want to check to see if you're sending SMTP across, you'll be able to see if it is going across or not. You got your FTP as well, and then you got other get into your interface and what have you. Normally, we go in here in the desktop tab, and we have the IP configuration. As you can see already, you have a linked local address. So once we get in further in the course and we start doing IPv6 configurations, we'll be putting IP addresses in there. And of course, we'll be putting IPv4 version addresses right in there. You also have your command prompt for your IP config all right, pinging, telnetting, SSHing. We can do all that. Or you can go into your browser and put in whatever IP address or DNS, right, FQDN, that you've set up in DNS where you need to go to, and that'll pop up as well. So it has a lot of functionality, and you can have a lot of fun with the packet tracer doing whatever you want. Okay, the navigation of the packet tracer is really not that difficult. Enough playing around with it, and you'll see that it really is not. Now, the next one, or really the last one that I'm going to show you, as far as devices that I'm going to take out there, is the cloud. Now, I always pick the first cloud because the first cloud already has the interfaces in it. What do you do with this cloud? This cloud, I use it when I'm creating frame relay, because as you can see, there's frame relay right there. All right, but you obviously need to set up the interfaces first. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, however many interfaces you have. So this cloud, it is useful when we do the frame relay network. This is the cloud that we're going to use. All right, and we connect our routers to it. And always remember, even though we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but it is your provider that will provide the clocking for you. So in the frame relay cloud, the clock rate will always be, and you may not understand that now, but you will understand it in later lessons. The clock rate will be the part that will be on the cloud, all right, not on the routers. Routers are DTE. Start putting that in your head already. Routers are DTE devices, where providers are DCE devices. All right. The only reason in a lab environment, when you see me connect a router to a router to a router, and I'll show you that now. All right. When I connect a router to a router and we use serial cables, I always tell you, okay, DCE to DTE, DCE to DTE, because since we don't have a provider as such, we need to provide the clocking ourselves on the router. And what provides the clocking is the actual cable, right? That serial cable, that WIC cable, whichever WIC you bought, whether it's about the WIC 1 or the WIC 2. So depending on the type of WIC card you purchase, depending on the cable you have. Well, that cable, one side of it is considered a serial crossover cable because it has a DCE and a DTE side. It is the cable that determines which will carry the clock rate, not the interface. These are modular routers. Back in the day, when I started with 2501s, they were just fixed routers. So those routers, the serial 0, they were the DCE, period. Not anymore. Now, it doesn't matter which router, which slot carries the DCE. These are modular routers. So let's go ahead and show you that real quick. So what we did here, remember in this one, we placed an actual WIC 1 T card in there. What we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing in here. We're going to go ahead and just turn off the router, and we'll drag a WIC 1 T just to drag one in there. And then we'll do the same thing for the last one. And you can see the difference in the architecture of the router. This is the 2811. You can see there's completely different. Now you have more slots available. All right, so let's turn off the router and let's pick the WIC 1T right here. We'll put it on this slot right here. We'll turn on the router again. And then when you're connecting these routers together, very simple to do. You see the lightning bolt? You can cheat, and with a lightning bolt, when you press on it once, everything else comes out. All the other different types of cables come out. So what we're going to do is we can either cheat and use the orange lightning bolt on the right side, and it'll pick the interface for us, or we actually pick the serial cable that we require, if that's the type of cable we want. Once we get later on, we'll learn that similar devices use crossover cable, dissimilar devices use straight through cables. In this case, we're picking the serial DCE because I want the first router to have the clock rate. We got S00. Saw that? The line just follows me all along. Click on the second router, pick the second port, and you can see that's kind of funny. Where this is an 1841, it has a slot, or it has a router slot port, where this one just has a slot and a port. So you can see the difference between just how the architecture, the physical architecture, is different. It really doesn't make a difference once you put an IP address and all that, it'll work. I should have added another. That's right, we only did WIC 1Ts. So let me go back in here. Let me add another WIC 1T. Let me turn off the router. Put another WIC 1T. Since it's the middle router, you need 2 connections. Go back. Let's take this as also the serial DCE. Click on that. Click on that. And boom. Now they're connected. So it's just as simple as that. You select the cable that you want. You select the router. If that's going to be DC or DT, whatever your decision is. But between each segment of a router, one of them has to, if it's a serial, one of them has to have the clock rate. One of them has to have the clock rate. That you need to make sure that happens. And then the same thing for the other side. If now when you're going from a router to a switch, it's a straight through cable. So you come here and they all have the names. If you look at it, all the cables are down there. It'll tell you the name. Hey, there's a copper straight through, the solid black line. So I pick F024. And you'll find out why I always pick that cable. And then I pick F00. And there you go. Now you have your switch connected to your router. And then the same type of cable will go from your PC0, Fast Ethernet 00, to your Fast Ethernet 1. And again, don't worry too much right now. Now I'm just showing you how to work with the packet tracer. You'll understand about the cabling portion of it and why we're cabling it this way and all these different things much later on. Right now, we're just learning, hey, we can drag and drop everything in here and we can just start connecting and start creating topologies, and not a problem. The packet tracer is a very easy tool to navigate. One thing, don't forget to save. So if you click just the save button, you know, even though we don't use floppies anymore, it's still a floppy, and then save it wherever you want, right? Wherever is more convenient for you. I never save it to a default location. Obviously, I have a folder that I save things to, but you would save it to whatever folder of your choosing. Okay, doesn't like my finger. All right, so that's it really. The packet tracer is not that huge of a program. It does a lot of things, but it's very easy to navigate, to drag and drop things. The limitation here is your imagination and your understanding of how a network should be set up and should be properly segmented. And then of course the IP scheme that you will use and will come next. Okay, well that's it. That's the navigation of the packet tracer. I hope you enjoyed it. It's not really that much. It's pretty simple. So just practice, play with it, and you'll get it in no time. I'll see you in the next one.